So living simply and spending your time less on material goods, we will find much more joy in our imagination and creativity and spirituality and meditation and friendship and loving, caring, service to each other. So the Jain principle of a simple life creates the consciousness that we should live by sun, by rain, by wind, by soil, by our imagination, by our creativity. That's a Jain idea. Don't seek more money. Just say, I'll have less money, smaller salary, but more time. So walk to work and work less.
Hi, I'm Amisha, and this is episode 7 of the Future is Beautiful podcast here on the winter solstice, or the summer solstice, depending on where you are, as I know we now have friends listening in 63 different countries. Hello! It's the longest night of the year here in England, and we have the perfect interview for it. Before we get there, I want to shout out with gratitude to those that are donating to our monthly Patreon campaign and helping to make all of this happen. It's so appreciated. If you want to donate and help keep us advertising free, you can visit patreon.com/Amisha to make your pledge and give anything from just the cost of a banana per episode. My guest tonight is the wonderful Satish Kumar. The first time I met Satish was at the Tagore Festival at Dartington Hall in Devon, although I'd followed his work for a long time. In this conversation, we talk about Jainism, which is my paternal religious heritage, and its main concepts of non-violence and the multiplicity of truth. We discuss how soil, soul, society is the new trinity for our time, and receive much Satish wisdom. I hope that you enjoy this interview and that it sparks something in your soul. Welcome to The Future is Beautiful, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between politics, spirituality, creativity, and sustainability. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a brighter future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community, or the pressures that we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to dream, to ask ourselves the big questions and to share what we are already doing, we create the future that we wish to wake up for. That future is beautiful. I'm delighted today to be joined by Satish Kumar, who is a very inspiring elder in our society and really someone that has inspired my work a lot. A lot of my work and my projects are about how we can weave together politics, sustainability, spirituality and creativity, and that for me is really the makings of a beautiful future through what we're doing right now in the present. And Satish, so much of your work has really inspired me of how we can bring together these different ideas and not act in silos. So it was from you that I first heard the term spiritual ecology, and this bringing together of what is spiritual and what is environmental. Can you share a little bit about that?
Certainly. It's a pleasure to be having conversation with you, and your word, weaving together, is a very beautiful word. There was a great poet in India called Kabir, and he was a weaver, and he wrote a beautiful song called Jeeni, 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 Beeni, Chadariya. So he looked at the universe and the life and the society as a woven tapestry. So weaving together is a kind of holistic approach, seeing the big picture. Quite often people become specialists and they only see one part. Either they say, I'm an environmentalist, and my job is to protect nature. Or they would say, I'm a socialist or humanist or human rights person, and my job is to bring human rights or reduce poverty or bring social justice. Or some other people will say, oh, I don't have time for the world, I want to look after myself, and I'm a spiritual person, I must do my yoga, my meditation, my spiritual practices. So people separate and disconnect these different aspects. But if you look at our body is a unity. It contains everything. It's made of earth, air, fire, water, imagination, consciousness, spirit, art, poetry, music, spirituality, love, relationship, compassion. Is there anything which we don't have in our body?
Money.
Money, exactly. Money, politics, family. And so, this is why I have always emphasized the idea of connecting, weaving, bringing things together, seeing the whole. And within that whole, of course, like you have a whole house, but within that house, when you want to sleep, you can go to your bedroom. And when you want to work, you can go in your study. Or when you want to grow some food, you can go in your garden. Want to cook, you can go in your kitchen. So each part has their place. But home is everything together. So in the same way, I try to bring society where ecology, spirituality, social justice, human rights, all these things come together.
Beautiful. And so let's go back to when you were a little boy and in Rajasthan in India, and I know that at 9 you decided for yourself. It wasn't your mother that decided for you to go and join the Jain monks.
Yeah.
And so my family is half Jain, half Hindu. My father's Jain, my mother's Hindu. They had a very rebellious and revolutionary love marriage, and so I've been very exposed to Jainism, and I find that a lot of people in Western culture haven't really heard of Jainism.
Yeah.
It's not as well known as Buddhism, as Hinduism. How do you explain what Jainism is?
Yes, Jainism and Buddhism both have quite a similarity, because they were initiated more or less at the same time. The founder of the Jain religion of our time, contemporary time, the Jainism which we know and practice, was founded by Mahavir. And Mahavir was contemporary to the Buddha. And so there are similarities in meditation and not having the idea of a creator God. Those sort of things are very similar. But in Jainism, there are two most important principles which really define Jainism. One is non-violence. Ahimsa paramo dharma. Non-violence is the supreme principle. And non-violence of the mind, non-violence of the speech, and non-violence of the action. All three levels in our lives. Non-violence at three levels. And then, in a practical and external world, non-violence to yourself, non-violence to other people, and non-violence to nature. This very broad and inclusive meaning of non-violence is one of the greatest gifts of Jainism to the world. Quite often, when people think about non-violence, they think about non-violence to other people. And maybe non-violence, not hurting or not killing or not hitting somebody. But Jainism says that's a kind of a tiny tip of iceberg. Non-violence is a very big concept. Even your thoughts, negative thoughts, angry thoughts, critical thoughts of somebody, putting down somebody, would be violence.
Or yourself.
Or to yourself, exactly. This is a non-violence to yourself, and non-violence to other people, and non-violence to nature. These three levels simultaneously. And so, I would say that's one great principle. And this is why Jainism has championed the idea of animal welfare. So Jains would not eat meat. Even further, Jains will not dig the soil, and they will not disturb the soil in order to get their food. So they will avoid eating onions and potatoes and garlic and carrots, because they don't want to uproot anything or disturb the soil. So it's a very sensitive religion in terms of non-violence. And Mahatma Gandhi, also quite influenced by Jainism, one of his great teachers was Srimad Rajchandra, who was a wonderful Jain prophet of Gujarat. And so Gandhi developed that non-violence, taking from a Jain tradition as well as Hindu. But Hindus were, if you take Bhagavad Gita, they use the metaphor of war in order to understand spirituality. But Jains will not use metaphor of war to connect with spirituality. So Mahatma Gandhi took non-violence much further and used non-violence techniques and methods to bring about justice and freedom, independence for India, and end of untouchability, and equality for women, and removal of poverty. All these issues we have to tackle, the social issues. How do you tackle them? He developed techniques of non-violence. So that's the one most important gift of Jains to the world. The second great gift, I think, which is not so well known, is what is called anekant, meaning no single truth. Truth has many sides, multiplicity of truth, diversity of truths. So as we have biodiversity, cultural diversity, religious diversity, linguistic diversity, Jains would say we also should have a truth diversity. And there is no single truth which everybody has to adhere to, like a dogma, like a fixed philosophy. So Jain idea of truth, multiplicity of truth, anekant, no one truth, no single view, but a more multiple, all-inclusive view. That's a more democratic, allowing people to have their own experience and have their own understanding of the reality. And so ahimsa, non-violence, anekant, no one truth. I think these two principles for me stand out. But of course then in practical terms, being vegetarian, practicing meditation, remaining calm, living a more restrained life, accepting the limits, because in our modern society we have so much consumerism and materialism, and so Jains will always advocate simplicity of life, frugality of life. So these are the most important Jain principles which I was attracted to. And as you said, I became a Jain monk at age 9, and so from age 9 to 18, I was practicing all these great Jain principles. So they became sort of my second nature, and I tried to embody them in my life. And then I was also greatly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, and so I also worked with Mahatma Gandhi's ashrams and movement. And so it's a kind of combination of Jain, Buddhist, Hindu that I embrace now.
I feel like for me a lot of the Jainism, like I do sometimes go to Jain temples and I do sometimes sit and do Onam Varyantanam, but mostly the Jainism for me it is in these principles, and through my grandfather as well and my grandmother as well as being Jain, they were really into seva and helping out in humanitarian crisis, and they also they would only wear khadi. They were big supporters of Ghandi. My father and my aunties and uncles grew up only being allowed to wear khadi, which drove them mad because, at least I know some of my aunties wanted to wear other cloths and more, colourful cloths. But so these principles are kind of like rooted into my family.
The principle of simplicity is also similar to non-violence and anekant. The principle of simplicity is a part of non-violence, because if you clutter your house with more and more and more things, then you have to take resources from nature. And when you take resources from nature, you are diminishing nature and respecting nature and giving the rights to nature. Like we all talk about human rights, but Jains will go further and they will say nature has rights and we should respect nature and take from nature only but our absolutely essential needs and not more. So if you can live with 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, why do you have to have 10 pairs of shoes? Because those shoes will kill animals. Or if you take shoes from dead animal skin, how many dead animals are there that you can make shoes? So why should you have 10 pairs of shoes in your house, or clothes, or food, or anything? So living simply and spending your time less on material goods, possessing them, buying them, making them, takes time. So save your time from this material consumerism and possessions and accumulation and creating sort of cluttering your house. Take that time, save that time, and use that time from Jain tradition in your meditation, in your relationship, in your friendship, non-material, metaphysical dimension of your life. Poetry, singing, painting, reading scriptures, debating, conversations. These activities don't require any kind of natural resources. So our impact on the environment will be less, our footprint on the environment will be less, and we will find much more joy in our imagination and creativity and spirituality and meditation and friendship and loving, caring, service to each other, and pursuing arts and culture and painting and dance and music. And they don't need any natural materials. So you can enjoy your life, enrich your life, have a prosperity of your life without making such a negative impact on the environment. But our modern materialistic society is creating devastating impact on the environment. Mining. Jains will never, if they were true Jains, they will never go into mining. When you take oil from the underworld, I call it, or coal, or gas coming from the underworld, I call it dark energy. Because dark energy is coming from the underworld, which traditionally we call the world of hell. And then you have energy from the sun, from the wind, from the rain, and they are from above, which is I call light energy, in contradiction or counter to dark energy. And that energy coming from above, which is the heaven realm. So energy from heaven is the solar energy, which is plentiful. The rain energy, water energy, plentiful. The rain comes to us transported by the clouds without any fossil fuel or any need for energy. And it goes to every house, every garden, every field, every village, every town, every country, everywhere there's a rain. And everywhere there's a sun, free of charge. That's the pure energy, energy from heaven I call it, coming to us free of charge. Our duty is to harvest it, use it, and not go into mining dark energy and digging the soil and going thousands of meters down the hell and get that energy, which is creating global warming and climate change. So the Jain principle of a simple life creates the consciousness that we should live by sun, by rain, by wind, by soil, by our imagination, by our creativity. That's a Jain idea.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And ideas that are much needed in this time.
Yes.
And so when you were 9, how did you know that you wanted to go and be a monk?
I mean, I was very kind of disturbed because when I was 4 years old, my father died. And I could not understand what was going on. Everybody was crying. My mother was crying. My sisters-in-laws, brothers, uncles, aunts, neighbors, everybody crying. And my father lying in state, not moving, not talking. So I was confused. I didn't know what was happening. And so when I asked my mother, "Why are you crying?" Then she explained to me that your father is dead. I didn't know what death was, meaning of the death. And so I said, what is death? And she said, everybody who live stop living and they die. And then you don't see them anymore. So you will never see your father anymore. So I said, but also you will be dead one day? I asked. She said, yes. And I'll never see you again? Yes, you never see me again. Everybody die like that. So that, as a boy of 4, created quite of upset and confusion. And from that very moment, I started to question and wonder. And as I grew from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, and then I met our Jain guru. I followed a very famous and very wonderful, almost you can say an enlightened guru called Tulsi. And so one day I asked him, I was about 8 at that time. I asked him, because my mother used to go to him, I was following her, and so I asked him, is there a way of stopping death? And after long conversation, basically he said that this cycle of birth and death can only be stopped by renouncing the world and following 100% spiritual path. And that idea attracted me, but also I liked the guru because I had lost my father, and he looked to me and seemed to me, and I felt like he was my father. The kind of rapport. So on the one hand, my concern about death, and on the other hand, a very wonderful, charming, inspiring, loving, kind man. So I said, I want to follow you. So that was how I became finally a monk. It was my own decision. And then for 9 years, I followed his path. And he gave me tremendous teachings. The foundation for my ecological and social concerns and nonviolence to all were laid bare in that tradition and at that time in my childhood. And I learned Sanskrit, I learned Jain scriptures, I learned philosophy, I learned literature at that time. So it became a schooling as well, and not a formal schooling. I didn't go to formal school. So, so that was how I began my life up to age 18.
And I mean, was it all like learning and inspiration, or was it also quite tough in?
It was also very tough, because Jain monks bring upon themselves difficulties. So we are always walking, no bicycle, no boat, no train, no car, nothing, just walking, and bare feet. Hot, cold, any time, any season, always walking, bare feet. Then no home, always on the move, completely dynamic, always on the go, flowing like a river.
Around Rajasthan, or you would go all over India?
All over, all over. I went from Rajasthan, I went to Uttar Pradesh, the Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Gujarat, many places. So all over. So all the time on the move. So flow like a river, flow like a wind, never static, never fixed, no home. So that was quite tough. And then monks don't engage in any work. We never touch money. So for 9 years, I did not touch money. Nothing buying, nothing selling. So always living by begging. So I was a begging, wandering monk. So I'll go from door to door to door, and if somebody gives me 2 pieces of bread, I'll say, I'll take only 1. So always take less than the giver give you. And never take too much from one place. Little here, a little there, always small amount of begging. And this way, living by begging, living by walking, living just one change of clothes, nothing else. Absolutely bare simplicity that you have to practice. So it was tough. And the main thing is to renounce your ego, renounce your pride, renounce your anger. And Guru is always teaching you to surrender your ego to your Guru, but Guru is only a kind of excuse. You surrender your ego so that you are here to celebrate life and serve through teaching. Through your teaching, you help other people to find a spiritual path. So you are in a way in the service of the others. You are not making anything material for them, but helping them to find their spiritual path. So renouncing your desires and your attachment is not easy. That's even more tough than renouncing your clothes or walking bare feet and so on. That's a kind of physical, you can say, I'll do it. But letting go of your attachment to your family, to your friends, to anyone, and renouncing your pride and almost selflessness. And that was something that I trained myself to learn. How you can live with minimizing day by day your anger and fear and trust the world. That I learned. And I think that was my greatest learning during those 9 years.
And then that gave you the inspiration that with coming into contact with the work of Gandhiji,
Yes.
gave you the inspiration to take another pilgrimage, and this time to go to the nuclear power centers of the world.
Absolutely. Because as a monk, I was trained to walk without fear. And as a monk, I was also trained to live by begging and live without money and trust. So it was a good training for me to start walking for peace from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi in New Delhi to 4 nuclear capitals of the world: Moscow, Paris, London, Washington, D.C. At that time, these were the 4 nuclear capitals. And so the monk's training and a Jain training created that ground, that basis, that foundation, that I could do it. That courage to do it. Normally one would fear, how am I going to survive without money abroad in other countries? I'm going to unknown countries, unknown languages, and I'm going through Muslim countries, Christian countries, communist countries, capitalist countries, poor, rich. I'm going through deserts, mountains, snow, rain, storms, wild forests. I mean, one can be discouraged.
And this time going with just one friend rather than being with the other monks.
Exactly.
Which is in some way protected, plus it's an order that Indians understand. So
Yes.
if they see a group of Jain monks walking, they understand what that is. But you left from the monks in the middle of the night. Is that right?
That's right.
You felt like you needed to be out in the world,
Yes, yes.
taking everything that you had learned,
Yes.
and doing something.
Something, yeah. Yes, so there are 2 stories here. One story is walking with my friend. He was from Kerala, E.P. Menon, and he was also working with the Gandhian movement. So we were good colleagues, and that was good strength, that I was with a good friend. And we both were very strongly against nuclear weapons. And my Jain training was particularly more positive of non-violence, because for me, as a Jain, peace is not merely an absence of war or absence of nuclear weapons or any other weapons. Peace is more a way of life. How you live is the basic. And if you live non-violently, less ego, do not wish to control other people, do not have power over other people, but empowered within, then that will automatically create a situation and condition where you don't need wars, you don't need weapons, because you are not trying to control anybody. So that was my thinking. And my friend and I went to all these countries. And that was a tremendous strengthening experience. What we learned in those 2.5 years, walking 8,000 miles without any money in our pockets, and meeting students, activists, rich people, poor people, all political backgrounds, all religious backgrounds, different nationalities, and seeing one humanity, before one is Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Hindu or a Russian or American or a black or white or man or woman, we are one human family. That experience, that whoever we met, we found them as human beings and they welcomed us and we met them at that human level rather than putting these labels of Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Russian, American, communist, capitalist, all the labels. That was, I would say, a very formative experience, similar to being a monk. But yes.
So how did you, or how does somebody work with the fear, and the fear that is quite inherent in most of us and in our conditioned experience of the world?
Yeah.
How do we go from a place of fear to trust?
Yeah, yeah. It's a gradual process. First of all, you have to be aware and mindful that I want to overcome fear. That conviction and that realization is the first step. And then when you have fear, be aware and say, this is my fear. I'm only anticipating problems. Problems are not yet here, but I'm just anticipating and thinking problems which may or may not arise. Mm-hmm. So that's the second step, that you question your fear. And then say that whatever the unknown future that I'm going to face, unknown conditions and situations I'm going to encounter, no problem may arise, everything may go smoothly and perfectly, and if problems do arise and difficulties do happen and appear, then I am capable of facing the difficulty and finding the answers. So having trust in yourself, I am capable. I have imagination, I have kindness, I have creativity, I have forgiveness, I have strength. I will think on my feet and find the solution. So cultivating that strength and trust in yourself, and then using this mantra, I will trust, I can trust, I will trust, I can trust, I am trusting, I will move. And if difficulties come, they are welcome. Difficulties will give me the opportunity to use my imagination to solve them. If everything goes smoothly, that's too boring. So that way you cultivate day by day, mindfully, in your meditation, in your everyday life, you cultivate trust. And you may never overcome all your fear altogether completely, but that doesn't matter. You minimize the fear. And a little bit of fear is, in a way, kind of, you can say, human. We have to embrace our humanity. We cannot be absolutely pure. But focus of our mind is always minimizing fear and maximizing trust. And then you can live better. If you live in fear and maximize your fear and minimize your trust, you will not enjoy your life. And you will not be able to contribute and serve and create anything, because you are always afraid. You don't want to take any risk. Whereas to live is to risk.
Yeah, beautiful. I really feel that. One of the things that you talk about, which I really like, is how so often we're tourists in this world, and so we'll go visit another country or even another town 5 minutes from where we live as a tourist, and that tourists complain, and that when we're a pilgrim, then we celebrate. And so that attitude that attitude helped you to find celebration in all of the difference that you encountered throughout your journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when I went around the world, I went as a pilgrim, peace pilgrim, earth pilgrim. And when you are a pilgrim, you accept whatever happens. And you drop all your expectations. Tourists have expectations. Pilgrims drop expectations. Because if you expect things to happen in a certain way, things don't work out as you expect. And then you end up with disappointment. Pilgrim is never disappointed because not expecting anything. Whatever happens, you embrace. So that open heart, open mind, receptivity, welcoming whatever the situation. If you sleep on the floor, welcome. If you sleep on a four-poster bed, welcome. No difference, because you are not expecting a four-poster bed or a floor, because you don't know what you are going to meet or encounter. So whatever situation comes, you accept. That's the mind of a pilgrim. And when you expect anything, then, and when you don't expect it, don't meet, you complain. The hotel was not good, the food was not good, the room was not good, the toilet was not working, the lights were not working. Something is always wrong. Because nothing is perfect in the world. So you are always going to find something wrong. And you only focus on something wrong as a tourist. But the moment you accept and enjoy and see whatever is happening, then you celebrate. Whatever. If the rain is coming, you celebrate. If the sun is coming, you celebrate. If the wind is coming, you celebrate. If somebody is abusing you, say thank you, giving me chance to forgive you. Thank you for giving me chance to be patient. So even somebody's abuse, you accept. So that way you can celebrate every moment of your life. And you enjoy whatever is happening. Take pleasure in your action, in your encounters, in your experiences. So, tourist mindset is a mindset of complaining, and a pilgrim's mindset is a mindset of celebrating. And everything else is the same. You are traveling, you are walking, you are going to see a temple, you are going to see a beautiful monument, you are going to see a beautiful painting. Whatever you are going, the actions are same, but the mind is different. The consciousness is different. And so I like to cultivate, and I like the word pilgrim more than hero. Mm-hmm. Because hero has a kind of macho feeling to it. And you have to be something special. And
more ego.
More ego. And also has a kind of more masculine feel to it. But the pilgrim word is humble. And whether you are a man or woman, you can be a pilgrim. You can be, anybody can be a pilgrim. You don't have to be something special. It's just a consciousness, just a mindset that you have to embrace of a pilgrim. So I like the metaphor of a pilgrim. And pilgrim for me is not only going to sacred places like Santiago de Compostela or Jerusalem or Mount Kailash or some big Palitana or something like that. You have to be, or you need to be, or you wish to be, or I wish to be a pilgrim of life. So then every journey you are making is a pilgrimage. And the sacred places are not only sacred places of a particular name or a particular spot, but whole earth is sacred. whole nature is sacred. Life is sacred. All living beings are sacred. And therefore, you celebrate wherever you are. A tree you are sitting under or standing under is sacred. A flower you are looking at is sacred. A bird flying in the sky is sacred. A butterfly you look at is sacred. Even a wild flower is sacred. So that kind of sense of the sacred, you create a reverence for life, respect for life. All life is sacred. And therefore, you love life. And the moment you start to love all life equally, then that is the mindset of a pilgrim. And going to special places is only a kind of opening the doors, giving you opportunity to practice that mindset. So I have done various pilgrimages as well, like Santiago de Compostela or Mount Kailash in the Himalayas, or some other, or Palitana. But for me, those are kind of metaphorical. In my consciousness, I consider myself a pilgrim of life.
It's beautiful. I feel like some of our friends listening will be resonating with what we're talking about, but maybe have very condensed, dense lives, you know, like this. We're sat here in London today, and you know, there's trucks going by the window, and there's noise, and you know, the bustle, the kind of the denseness and the energy here. And a lot of our friends listening have a lifestyle that, you know, is get up really early, go to work, sit at the computer, long days, you know, rush to an event or to this or back to the family, and the cycle continues. How, like, one of the things that I do is I have a few favourite trees around London, and I go visit them as often as possible and sit underneath them. But what are some other ways that that those that have, you know, really full-on, fast-paced, high-intensity urban lifestyles can do to find some of the pilgrim within them?
My advice to people living in such conditions, in cities and so on, is that try to find a place to live near where you work, so that you are always able to walk 20 minutes, half an hour to your work, and you don't have to go in a bus or in underground rush hour trains or rush hour cars commuting and sitting in the traffic jam. Because those situations of commuting are very stressful, and people come to work exhausted already because they have been sort of frustrated in that rush hour. So first thing, I would like people to walk to work and use public transport only when you are going to do something special, visiting a friend or family or some exhibition or something, conference or something like that. But every day commuting to work is stressful, and you cannot be a pilgrim in a commuter rush hour or a traffic jam. Number one. Number two, I would advise that if you are working 5 days a week, negotiate with your company and your workplace to reduce your commitment from 5 days a week to maybe 3 days a week, or maximum 4 days a week, but ideally 3 days a week. No more than 3 days a week working to earn money. And the remaining Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days, take your control of your life. Become the CEO of your own life rather than the CEO of a company. And use those 4 days for your own imaginative, creative work. Art, music, crafts, family, friendship, walking, health, yoga, meditation. There are lots of things which you want to do, but you have no time to do. So reduce your work days no more than 3 to 4 days. and earn less money. Don't seek more money. Just say, I'll have less money, smaller salary, but more time. And with that less money, consume less, buy less, have less possessions. What you basically need is good food. Don't economize on your food. Don't buy cheap food. Buy expensive, but good, fresh, if possible local, if possible organic, good food. Because your nutrition of your health is fundamental. Everything else will be added to it. If your health is not good, if you're not eating right food, you will not be happy. You cannot have a happy life on a bad diet. So good food. Everything else very small. You need few clothes, a few shoes, a few small things. Have comfortable life, elegant simplicity, but don't seek too much clutter. That's the Jain principle of simplicity. So elegant simplicity, live simple life, use less money, and use your imagination and creativity to write books, to write poetry, to give talks, or teach, or do something which will give you joy and satisfaction and happiness. And that will also may bring you some money. If you write books or poetry, they might sell. And one day, you never know, your book might be a bestseller. Who knows? Give your time for imagination. So walk to work and work less.
I love it. It completely makes sense on a human and a spiritual and an ecological level. And yet it sounds so radical in the society that we are in to do something like that.
Yeah.
Where we're so
and even in cities, you can grow food on your roof. You can have solar panel on your roof. You can have a garden on your garden. You can have a garden on your wall. Vertical garden, roof garden. You can harvest your water. Even in cities are not necessarily an impediment to sustainability. But our cities are badly planned and wasted. So we need to have cities reorganized and replanned, a new kind of urban planning where nature is embraced in the culture and nature is brought back into the city and not exiled into countryside.
And so this kind of leads into your trinity for our time of soil, soul and society. Can you share a bit about the importance of trinities, and then we'll go into each one?
Trinities are very important because if you have just two words, it's a kind of dualism. Mm-hmm. But trinity makes more holistic. So all great movements have trinities. The French Revolution was based on the trinity of égalité, liberté, fraternité. The Christian tradition is Father, Son and Holy Spirit. I often say to my Christian friends, the Father is fine, but what about the mother? and Son is fine, but what about the daughter and the feminine? And the Holy Spirit is fine, but what about holy matter? So matter is also sacred and holy. So there are many other trinities, truth, goodness and beauty. That's a lovely trinity. And American trinity is life, liberty and pursuit of happiness. The New Age trinity is mind, body, spirit. But all these trinities, I felt, do not represent a holistic view. Many of these trinities either lack spiritual dimension, or lack ecological dimension, or lack social dimension. I wanted to have a new trinity for our time, for the age of ecology, holistic trinity. So I presented this new trinity and wrote a book, Soil, Soul, Society. And I put soil at the top because we are made of soil. The word human comes from humus, and humus means soil. So we are soil beings. Our bodies are made of the earth, of the soil. When you eat food like apples or bananas or mangoes or wheat or rice or vegetables, they're all soil transformed. They're all, you put the seed in the soil and the soil gets itself to make that seed into a plant, and with the help of the sun and the rain, the soil becomes the plant and the tree and the fruit. And so we are soil. But we don't talk about soil. We don't take care of the soil. We don't replenish the soil. We think soil is dead. We have to put chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides and herbicide, all those things. So I want people to pay attention to soil. And soil represents the entire nature. Our forests are soil. Our animals are soil. If we put animals in factory farms and destroy the forests, how are we going to live? If we don't plant trees, trees are soil. If we don't have trees, how can we have oxygen? Who will take our carbon? We will have global warming, climate change, rains will not come. So taking care of the environment, taking care of nature, and taking care of the earth, the soil, and the good farming and the good gardening, that has to be an essential agenda of our time. But quite often we forget that outer landscape of soil also requires a balancing act of the inner landscape of love, inner landscape of soul. If we are spiritually not fulfilled, if we are not in joyful life, happiness in our life, we are not happy in our relationships, if we are not cultivating our compassion and our kindness and our generosity and our love and our trust, which are the soul qualities, the imagination is a soul quality. If we don't cultivate our soul and we don't allow time for cultivating our soul, then just outer landscape will not make us happy. So I think it's very essentially important, imperative, that we combine taking care of the soil, which is outer landscape, and a soul, which is our inner landscape. But we are not just individuals. We are members of a human community. And the moment we are all divided, society is divided into nationalities or races or gender or religions or political systems. We are all divided. And this division needs to be healed. And we have to come to understand we are one human family, one human society. Before we are Indians, we are humans. Before we are Hindus or Muslims or Christians, we are humans. Before we are blacks or whites, we are humans. Before we are men or women, we are humans. So all divisions must end in this unity of life and unity of society. And then if you have that unity, then we can tackle the problems of society like injustice, poverty, deprivation, discrimination of any kind. All that can be tackled once we have that consciousness. They are one human society, one human community, one human tribe. So that's why I have brought this new trinity for our time: soil, soul, society.
And I've heard you talk about how ecology and economics are connected, and so the dominant story in our society is very focused around money and consumerism. Can you explain how we've missed ecology's part in economics?
That's a very important point and question, because we have first of all misunderstood or lost the meaning of the word economy. And what we think of today, like the Chancellor of Exchequer or finance ministers of any country, or prime ministers or presidents or banks or business or industry, they all talk about the economy, but they don't mean the economy, they mean moneynomy. Because they are thinking about finance, they are talking about capital, they are talking about money, they are talking about transaction. Economic growth is not growth in nature. Economic growth is growth in money, money movement. And so what I want to remind these economists and industrialists and business leaders and bankers and government leaders, that the word economy means management of home. And home in the Greek wisdom is not only where you live every day, in your bedroom and a bathroom and a kitchen and a garden and a living room, but home is the entire planet. And managing all the sort of sources of life, which is nature, and how all the species fit together and help each other, and how they are all interconnected, and how they support each other. This mutuality, this reciprocity, this interconnectedness, this interdependence of the entire planet Earth, and managing that without any kind of diminishing of species and diminishing of our true resources. That is economy. But people have forgotten that. They just think economy means money. And the word economy is a kind of twin word with ecology. Because ecology is ecos and logos, like in economy, ecos and nomos. Ecos means home, nomos means management, and in ecology, ecos means home and logos means knowledge. So ecology and economy must always go together, like walking on two legs. Because if you don't know your home, how are you going to manage it? Mm-hmm. You cannot manage something which you don't know. So knowledge of your home is ecology, and that's a prerequisite for economy, the managing your home. So I want people to be aware of this true meaning and realize that ecology and economy must always go together. So this I am explaining in my book, Soil Society. And whenever I give my talks, I mean, I was invited to speak at London School of Economics, and I explained this to them. And I even suggested that the name of the university, London School of Economics, should be changed, and they should call it LSEE, London School of Ecology and Economics, and not just London School of Economics and Politics. Ecology and economy, these two words are absolutely twin sisters.
Mm-hmm. Because often there's this divide in our society that either you care about money or you care about nature, and that these two things can't, well, if you take out the focus on money, but the thrivingness of our society depends on this management and this knowledge, and this bringing together. And so, you know, you have been bringing this knowledge and this inquiry into all of your projects in Devon, so the Schumacher College, and the Small School, and Resurgence magazine. And we haven't had time to talk in detail about all of them today, but these are places that people can come to actually really, the Small School, to send their children to really be brought up in these principles, or the Schumacher College, a place to come and do courses and study and dive deeper into this way of life. And Resurgence magazine, beautiful magazine, full of inspiration and thought-provoking pieces. And
absolutely, at Schumacher College and Small School, what we say is that learning by doing, learning by practicing, experiencing. So our education should not be only education of the head, intellect, ideas, theories. It should be education of head, heart, and hands. So that's another trinity in education. So we of course learn with our head. Intellectual learning is good, but we also need to cultivate our heart and the feelings. And if your heart is closed and only head is open, that's not enough. And then hands, at Schumacher College and the Small School, and in our educational thinking, we say people should learn to make things. Gardening, cooking, craftsmanship, building, cleaning, all that is revered, respected. We say that we should not think that work is a chore. There should be a dignity of labor, the dignity in doing something, making something. And so Our education at Schumacher College, particularly I would like people to come and visit and spend some time there and see the new model of education, which brings soul, society together, head, heart and hands together.
And that we're always in a process of education, no matter how old we are.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of life, to keep the imagination alive.
When you are too old to learn, you are really too old. And you are never too old to learn.
That's really what death is.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not when you die, it's when you think you don't need to learn anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Satish, thank you so much.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
Beautiful. It's just gone by and it feels like we've been sat here for 5 minutes.
Thank
you. Thank you for listening. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book and discover so much more over on the blog. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our community. If you loved this and would like to contribute to our Patreon campaign or join our online group to connect with other listeners, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co and click on community. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes so we can grow. Here is to us, creating a beautiful future together.